We have a preschool here at First Presbyterian, and it's not ours, but they rent space from us. Lydia, my daughter, you may know, goes to preschool there. And sometimes throughout the week, the kids will be in the hallway getting their coats and their boots on, getting ready to go outside. Occasionally, I'll also be walking by at that very time, and the kids will greet me. "Oh, hi, Lydia's mom." Oh, it's Lydia's mom. Or, "Oh, it's Olivia's mom." Lydia has many names at this preschool, which they've tried to correct many times, but Lydia doesn't seem to mind. But the point is, the kids are always so excited to see me. And if I linger for too long, I'll get stuck in a conversation or really a monologue from a 3 or 4-year-old. Those kids love to tell anybody anything, it seems to me. Maybe it's just because they've seen me multiple times, but I've seen them do it to other people too. They'll say, "I'm getting my shoes on. We're going outside." Or they'll go into a story about their dog or their cat or their brother or their sister. They really just want to say anything and talk about it. They're just so excited. "Oh, hi, Lydia's mom." It makes me think about the way kids are so open to life and to joy. As we get older, that openness starts to go away. We have bad experiences, we get hurt, and we learn that it's not really socially acceptable to tell anyone anything about your life and your day, and that people don't really care about you putting your shoes or your coat on. Although I smile and really do love it when the kids tell me things. We learn as older adults, I think, to tamp down our joy. Sometimes I think we're even afraid of joy. I know in my own life, I can constantly feel like the other shoe is going to drop. So why lean into joy? Now this week, as I've been thinking about Palm Sunday, I've been thinking about joy and praise. That's what we do today with our palms. That's what the people did long ago as Jesus was riding on that donkey into Jerusalem. The whole throng of his disciples began rejoicing, Luke says. They praised God with a loud voice because of all the mighty things they had seen. Blessings on the King who comes in the name of the Lord. As Jesus is riding on the donkey, as they're cheering and putting their clothes down, there are not actually any palms in Luke's story of Palm Sunday. We might call this Cloak or Clothes Sunday instead. But as Jesus is riding along and they're cheering, they must have been making such a big racket because some of the disciples, some of the Pharisees beg Jesus to ask them to stop. But Jesus doesn't, and he says that beautiful line, "If they were silent, the stones would shout." I wonder if Jesus felt their joy, the joy and the praise of the crowd. How did it make him feel? Did he relish the moment the way that I do when those preschoolers call out, "Oh, Lydia's mom"? Or even sweeter, when I pick Lydia up after school and she sometimes says, "Mama," like she's never seen me before. Maybe Jesus felt that way. Maybe he too felt that joy. We don't know exactly how Jesus felt, but I imagine he did feel that joy and love. I imagine that it was beautiful, full of light. But we also know that Jesus felt sadness. Immediately after this procession into Jerusalem, Jesus weeps over Jerusalem. That part isn't often included in the Palm Sunday story, but Jesus comes to Jerusalem and weeps over it. He says, if only you knew on this day of all days the things that lead to peace. And then right after that, he goes to the temple and he clears out the moneylenders and the merchants. He overturns tables. He is angry. And so in just a short chapter, there is joy and sorrow and anger. Later in Holy Week, he will be betrayed. He will be tortured and murdered, and Jesus will cry out to God, "Why have you forsaken me?" Loneliness. In this story, as Jesus enters Jerusalem, where his life will end and so much will happen in a short time, we find all the highs and lows of life. Joy and sorrow, anger and betrayal, loneliness. And I wonder if Jesus knew all that as he's riding on that donkey and feeling the crowd's love and admiration. This week that we call Holy Week, there's so much feeling, so much of life. It holds all that we sometimes cannot hold. If we were there, would we be shouting with joy or just kind of watching from the sidelines? The pure joy that we knew as children seems hard to come by these days. We're still living and dealing with the effects of 2 years of COVID-19. There was an article this week about how many people have died due to COVID, led to life expectancy in the United States falling for the second year in a row. We live with war and the threat of war in Ukraine and Yemen, Syria, Afghanistan. Climate change lingers at the back of our minds. And all that we carry personally, grief, sorrow, any struggles we have. With all that feels heavy, can we feel that heaviness and let the grief out? But can we also feel the joy that comes with it and around it? Because joy and grief always exist together, and we can't have one without the other. Today, as we're looking toward Holy Week and thinking about Jesus, our peaceful King riding on a donkey, can we feel joy and praise? Can we be bold with our praise? Jesus knows our highs and lows and is the friend that we can turn to when life feels too much. Whether high or low, we can turn to God with all that we are and all that we have. We heard in Hebrews, we have a great high priest who passed through the heavens, and we don't have a high priest who can't sympathize with our weaknesses. Meaning we do have a high priest who can sympathize with all that we experience. Joy can feel like too much, so can grief. Bringing our whole selves to God feels vulnerable and scary. We don't want to show off our rough edges. And after 2 years of feeling all the feelings, it's sort of like we don't have any gas left in the tank. And yet God says, "Come, child. Approach the throne with boldness," the writer of Hebrews says. The children show us the way, as they did earlier with our squirrely children's time. They just delight. They don't always pay attention, and neither do we, to be honest. But they show us the way to live the highs and the lows with our full hearts and our full selves. Throughout Lent, we've been talking about spiritual practices, and the spiritual practice for this week is not really a spiritual practice, but kind of. They called it Try New Spiritual Practices. The invitation, I think, is to approach God with our whole selves in any way that we can find. whether it be prayer, fasting, unplugging, journaling, retreating, talking to a friend, sipping coffee. How is it that you can bring your whole self to God? Because God says, come. Elsewhere in the Gospels, Jesus tells us to be like little children. And so today, Jesus invites us to be like the children, to bring our whole selves to God with boldness, with confidence, with openness. Bring all that you are and praise the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Praise the Prince of Peace. Praise our great high priest. Praise our humble King riding to his death. If you still have them, raise your palm branches right now and say, Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest. Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord.